Welcome back to the nationally syndicated Price of Business show. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. I tell you, it's your business, in my opinion, to become an owner of your life. A lot of us are really, I had a great coach. He said, we posture our lives either as victims or as owners. And, one of the reasons why we're really unhappy in life is the kind of thinking we choose and the kind of approach to life that we have. And so I always look for authors. Any long-term listener of the show knows I look for authors who can really address that. And we've got one today with Zahra Karsan. She is a CEO of JetZend, and that website is I'm assuming it's GetZend. Thank you very much. GetZend.com. It is Monday, so I'm going to give me a little bit of a break. We're really glad to have you on the program. Tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to writing this book that is getting some really great feedback. 6 Weeks to Happy, the ultimate roadmap to retrain your brain for better health, greater abundance, and long-lasting happiness.
Thank you so much, Kevin. It's great to be on your show. Thank you for having me. I agree with everything you just said. My background, I started with an undergrad in psychology. I just was always fascinated with the human condition and human performance, and also what sets apart, those highly successful people that seem to have it all together from the rest. And so I started to think about, why do so many people get stuck in feeling like they're not enough or undeserving or incapable of that type of wealth or success or abundance or even deep connection like love? And it set me down a path of various studies. So I first started studying neurolinguistic programming and hypnotherapy after my psychology degree. And I realized, well, we're 5% conscious brain, 95% subconscious. So the world that we exist in, we're really, on a conscious level, only seeing and hearing and experiencing 5% of it. But what if we could tap into that 95% so that we can learn to boost human performance, so that we can learn how to live a better quality of life? And it was so fascinating that I then decided to further my studies, because I needed to understand the science behind it. I'm a science geek that way. So I needed to get into, optimal brain health. So I studied neuroscience and applied positive psychology, because I was trying to uncover the mechanisms that get us stuck and how we can move beyond. And I started to see patterns in the data. And I thought, my first career was as a management consultant, so countless, I've worked with so many C-level executives and countless methodologies and process improvements, and it was all about efficiency. And I thought, why don't I create a system and an easy-to-follow set of tools so I can teach people how to do this for themselves, how to achieve inner peace, how to achieve greater balance, how to reduce their stress, how to retrain their brain and their central nervous system away from stress and back towards calm, so we can actually live healthier, happier, more productive lives. And at the same time, as you said at the start, it's all about mindset. So how you do one thing is how you do many things. And, just fascinating. That led me to the Rewire system, which is a methodology in the book 6 Weeks to Happy. So I'm very excited to talk about that.
Yeah. I tell you, the one word that stuck out in my mind when I read, when my team brought to me the information about your book was the word retrain. Yes. That word really resonated with me. I'm a big fan of the work. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Abraham Lowe, but yes. A lot of people think he is the original cognitive behavioral therapist. He started writing about cognitive behavioral therapy techniques in the 1930s, which was about 30 years before the term was even, coined. And I love this idea. We like to think our neuroses, our challenges, our problems are unique or special. And he talked a lot about them as being, first of all, average. We all have challenges. We all have problems. It really comes down to how we look at them. And in addition to that, he said, a lot of what we're saying is mental illness. He believed in mental illness. Don't get me wrong. But it was so, even today, loosely used the expression that a lot of what we're calling that is reality, really poor training. We are just trained poorly. And we have an opportunity to really reparent ourselves as adults and retrain our brain.
Correct. I'm so happy you've asked that question. It's a great question. So retraining the brain is, we evolved to be good at survival. So there's no right or wrong in this. And we all feel, growing up, we all feel like we're the only ones struggling with certain things, like, how to be better, how to push ourselves further, and coming from that sort of victim mentality with, whatever story or whatever trauma we might have experienced or whatever, life events we may have gone through. But the reality is, it's part of the human experience. It's just part of the human journey. And with a little education and understanding and getting the right tools to move beyond, anyone can shift their mindset. So that's what I was trying to lay out in the book, 6 Weeks to Happy. So if we evolve to be good at survival, those survival strategies often work counter to our yearning to be peaceful, happy, productive, abundant. So how can we retrain? Well, it starts with having some education for how the brain is wired and how we evolved to have a negativity bias. We're actually wired to be on high alert for danger. We're wired to have a very strong stress response. It's called the fight or flight response, which I'm sure everybody has heard of. Back in the days when we lived in the bush, when our ancestors really had to flee from real danger, you'd hear a rustling in the trees, and this fight or flight response acted like a gas pedal, which enabled us to get that extra push we needed to get to safety. But once you were safe and the threat had diminished, our brains then triggered our central nervous system to say, okay, it's good to go back to calm now, and we were able to get back to that. So what does that mean in today's world? In today's world, we have stressors all the time. There's so much demanding of our time, our money, our attention, our energy these days that we are constantly being triggered into stress mode. And so this is why it's so important to learn the techniques and the tools you need to retrain your brain back to balance, because you can actually, within a matter of 6 weeks, retrain the brain and the central nervous system back to a calmer response. I mean, just imagine what that would feel like to be able to just quiet down for a moment. That feeling when you first reach holiday, because it's very difficult to be highly productive and super successful and be in an innovative zone if we're constantly just on this high stress and anxiety mode. And most of us feel like we have this baseline of stress and anxiety, but we're unaware of it. And I think what the pandemic did is it brought some attention to the fact that we couldn't just wake up, feel that, and then busy ourselves with the day. So normally we would wake up and turn that dial down, and instead it got turned up during this very strange year and a half we all just had. And so now we understand we really have to look after our mental and emotional health, but most people don't know where to start. They look at maybe getting a coach or a therapist, but I think what was really missing was to give people the tools, sort of a roadmap, so that they can start to be in control of their own stress and anxiety levels and start to begin the journey to look after our own health, our own mental and emotional health, with some easy-to-follow tools. And that's why the book 6 Weeks to Happy came about, is to give people those tools that they need so badly.
Yeah, we only have a couple of minutes left. Kind of give us some, I like to say marching orders, some to-dos for the listener. Obviously, I encourage them to check out the book. Where's the best place to do that? But go ahead and give them some other takeaways, if you will.
Oh, sure. Well, the book is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, so just search 6 Weeks to Happy or go to getzend.com. For the latest and greatest in our coaching. We also have an app that helps you stay on track with your goals. But if I could give some key takeaways, I mean, it's really important just to develop some self-awareness and to begin the path to your own healing. And the first step is to know that, everyone is going through it. Everyone experienced a really strange and discomforting year. And it is possible to start to be in control of your own mental and emotional health. And if we don't look after those things, it starts to wreak havoc on the body, right? You think of your body as, yes, something you need to look after in terms of nutrition and exercise, et cetera, but also your body acts as a gauge for how you're doing. If you're not processing those mental and emotional things below the surface that are causing the stress and anxiety to begin with, then it shows up in the body as chronic stress, as chronic inflammation, autoimmune disorder, high blood pressure. So it's really important to really look after our health from all areas, not just the physical, but this is a really good first step, learning techniques like how to develop mindfulness and some self-awareness in terms of what are those patterns that are causing the distress mentally, emotionally, and also physically. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Awareness is very, very important. And I think it's really helpful for people to realize that what we're going through, what you, the listener, is going through is, unfortunately, because of the odd times we live in, it's not like you are unique. And in fact, if you're in the United States, which the vast majority of our listeners are, we do have podcasts with listeners around the world, but we, beyond the radio show, but, we're better off than a lot of the rest of the world. And so it's really important to maintain perspective. You're not the only one, and you're not unique. I think we often use exceptionalism as much to our own demise as it is to our benefit.
Correct. Yes, I would agree with you. And, this is, as I said, it's the human experience. We're all suffering the same conditions, the same subconscious strategies, and they work against us sometimes. So if you can tap into, what it is, and we're all unique, as you said, so we all have our own experience in this life. We all have our own sets of needs in order to make us happy. And so we go through this life and we're sort of taught to be goal-centered. So if you go down a path of goal achievement, which is what I did, you realize it doesn't actually make you much happier once you get there. Once you have the career success and the financial success, it buys you some nice things. Sure, you have the means to do some wonderful things, but it doesn't actually bring you any closer to mental health or good mental health rather, or happiness and well-being. So what is it? What is that formula? And so tapping into what particularly you went through and need to sort of recover and heal from is the first step, and we're all going through it. So there's definitely no shame in looking for the tools you need to be better, to live a higher quality of life.
Absolutely. All right, Zahra, thanks so much. Zahra Karsan, she is CEO of GetZend, that website, GetZend.com. That's GetZend.com. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it.
I am Kevin Price, and you are listening to the nationally syndicated Price of Business show. Do want to remind you of our newsletter. It's called Read Instead, and it includes the best content from the Price of Business digital network. It includes this interview. This interview will show up there. This is very important, what we covered today. But also my interviews with other New York Times bestselling authors, Nobel Prize winners, and even billionaires. You can check them all out there at readinstead.com. Stay tuned for more after this.